Welcome to another episode of the EUC Expert Insight Series. Can you believe that this is the third episode in the series? I'm so glad you're joining us today. I'm your host, Sean Donahue from Nutanix, and I can't believe the lineup that we have for you on this episode. We've got a great story about mergers, acquisitions, moving and consolidating data centers. But again, I don't want to get ahead and I don't want to give the entirety of the story away because we have two guests that are guide us through this story. We have joining us from Coterra Energy, none other than Josh Robinson. Now get this, he's the senior data center architect at Coterra Energy. He's going to be joined by my old friend, Jim Luna. Jim's the head of business development and strategic partnerships here at Nutanix. So without further ado, I owe it to you, our viewers, to get right into it. So, Jim, take it away.
Thank you, Sean, for that wonderful introduction. And Josh, thank you for joining me here today. Why don't we just get started right away? Josh, can you give us a little bit of background and evolution of Coterra Energy?
So Coterra was formed when Cimarex and Capital merged in October 2021. We're an upstream oil and gas company, and some pretty interesting challenges around that merger, and that's how it came to be.
That's how it came to be. Indeed, I'm sure, as you mentioned, there's many challenges, but at the same time, opportunities when companies are merging together, right? How did you find that Coterra Energy managed through the transition process of the merger?
So the merger was challenging from an IT perspective. There was a lot of legacy hardware across multiple vendors. We had a need to move out of a Tulsa data center to a Cabot data center in Houston, Texas. So big data center migration, while we're also trying to figure out what apps are going to stay, what apps are going to go, and how we're going to transition those. Beyond that, we need to identify the pain points with our business and provide solutions to those problems.
Gotcha. Very good. So in that process, how did Nutanix help you consolidate some of these separate IT systems? And then the second part of that is, how are you looking to streamline operations across the different locations and environments that you had with the merger? Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
So we brought in Nutanix initially for some applications we wanted to isolate. And then there was also an opportunity to replace an aging VMware-based VDI system. So we decided to go with Citrix and Nutanix for that. This is a GPU-intensive application, so kind of a unique use case. So we purchased that cluster and put it in Houston. And so during that time frame, we had some stability issues with the Tulsa data center, and it became pretty obvious we needed to move very quickly out of there. And we came up with a plan utilizing some Nutanix assets to help us move very quickly over 1 gig WAN links and things like that. So it really was able to handle it like a champ and help us move our data center on a real tight timeline.
So performance and boosting up the VDI environment is always a challenge, right? Especially during transition. Were you able to sustain that during that process?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We were building out this VDI environment, and none of our VDI users noticed we were also piggybacking to use this hardware for migration purposes. And any VDI type project is very important to meet the user's needs for performance, right? Because they live and die on how the user feels, and it's usually if it's faster or slow. So not impacting that was pretty huge.
Very good. And as an energy company, I know you have some GIS applications that are in production, and you're also looking to move some legacy workloads. Can you tell us a little bit about how you leverage the Nutanix cloud platform to move your legacy workloads from Tulsa to Houston? And then, of course, how do you extend Nutanix to the edge for your GIS applications?
So for the migration, we use Nutanix Move. We're coming off an old VMware environment that had to get repaired really quickly. So it was pretty critical we got off of that. The Move product was able to connect to it, seed all the data over our WAN link, and then give us some real granular control over when and how we migrated the applications. And the best part was it was free. So really powerful product that we didn't have to go get extra capital for, budget approvals. We were just able to use it, and in fact, we stood it up in one day and had it moving data.
You're glad to hear that the Nutanix product really helped you out. And now I'm curious, you're leveraging Nutanix products like Nutanix Cloud Platform. Were you able to use Nutanix professional services as well in your transformation? And if so, what did you gain from their expertise and their guidance?
So we used Nutanix professional services for some other Nutanix type projects. I was actually a consultant during this time with Coursera, so I kind of handled the migration because we needed to move very quickly. But we have used them for some remote office implementations and things like that, and those clusters are up and running and humming along.
Wonderful, wonderful. What about Nutanix Prism as a central single pane of glass to drive simplicity in the environment? How vital was that solution for you in that transformation?
So we currently have 11, soon to be 12 Nutanix clusters spread out through the United States, and they would be really difficult to manage, maintain without Prism Central. So it's a key access point for us to our Nutanix environment, as well as we even have it monitoring some non-Nutanix clusters through intelligent operations, and just give us some insight into stuff beyond Nutanix that will eventually be Nutanix, but right now we're working on that.
Great. Let's switch a little bit and maybe talk about your VDI infrastructure, in particular Citrix virtual desktop infrastructure that's running on Nutanix. How are you enabled to get your nomadic users and your field workers to access their application and data from anywhere and any device?
So that process needs to be seamless for them, right? It needs to be the same whether you're on a network or off our network, and so they're able to access their applications through whether it be VDI instances or even we still have some XenApp as well. They come in and it just works, right? So the performance is consistent, performs very well. They don't get a lot of complaints about it. In fact, we're looking to expand that out to some additional applications and business units.
So interesting. And in particular for remote workers, did you find that their experience was optimal and it felt like a local experience as well?
Yeah, absolutely. They really can't tell the difference.
That's great to hear that you were able to deliver that level of performance and consistency, whether it's a remote worker, right, or a local worker as well. Absolutely. Now, switching into the future, how are you planning to use Nutanix in the future to support your business growth and innovation, right? Including cloud for desktops, cloud for disaster recovery, or Citrix in the cloud, for example. Any ideas you can give us on that?
So, being that it was two smaller oil companies merged to form a much larger one, there's a lot of room for growth for Nutanix, and there's a lot of initiatives we want to do on the IT side to provide better service to the business, better uptime, better performance, right? So one of the key things we're working on right now is one of our more critical applications. We've just acquired a Nutanix cluster, should ship at the end of the month. We're going to be moving into that. That'll be the jump off point for that application to be disaster recovered to one of our other data centers. We'll be using the Nutanix platform end to end for that. And then beyond that, some less critical applications that, we still want disaster recovery for, but we don't necessarily want to keep the hardware just idle in another data center. So we're looking at potentially going to Azure with that, leveraging the Nutanix cloud platform. We're also looking at Flow for these critical applications to further secure them. Beyond that, we're looking at expanding our VDI footprint to cover some more areas, some stuff potentially with our seismic and geology groups.
Wow, sounds like some exciting opportunities, from cloud to flow to desktop infrastructure expansion, right? So thank you for your time today, Josh. Much appreciated.
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you, Jim. What an amazing story that was, man. I don't know about you at home viewing this over the ether, but I took some copious notes in there. There were some jewels that really stood out to me when Josh was talking about the transition process and the merger and the acquisition and the consolidating of the data centers was just mind-boggling to me because it brought me back to my younger days. And I know what you're saying out there. What do you mean your younger days? You're such a young guy as it is. Now, in my younger days, when I was actually doing data center consolidations, this was long before we had tools like Nutanix. It did not go as seamlessly or as easily as Josh laid out in his story. I remember many a sleepless nights and many a weekends sitting in the data center and pounding water and caffeine just to get through those migrations and upgrade processes. If you're with me, then give me a little thumbs up in the chat window. But then also, what I also loved when Josh had said that they were using Nutanix Prism as that single pane of glass, that single management console. Hasn't that been our dream forever in a day to get into one management console and get away from all of the disparate management consoles that we need for individual tasks in individual areas of our infrastructure? It always seems like that single management console is the unicorn of data center management. It's a unicorn standing in a field of sunflowers, spitting off rainbow seeds. It's just unbelievable. Talk about efficiency. And I am a fan of efficiency. If you remember Frank and Lillian Gilbreth from the 1930s and how they studied the efficiency of coal miners, I know I'm a nerd, guilty. I admit it. I admit it. I admit it. But then also Jim, and he used the term, and I loved how he used the term nomadic users and field workers and how they relied on that Citrix virtual desktop infrastructure, VDI for us cool kids, running on top of the Nutanix platform, but also giving those nomadic users and field workers that local-like experience, which is so critical because nobody wants to hear their employees complain or criticize about a poor experience. So that was really noteworthy for me as well. And I want to invite you, now that we're at the end of this webinar, I want to invite you to actually read along with this story because there is a case study published on the Nutanix website all about Coterra and some of the amazing wins and successes that we heard about today, but then it also goes a step further. And I'm going to quote a reading from the good book, The Case of Coterra, a quote from Josh Robinson himself. Having a single pane of glass for all our clusters and being able to get the full hardware information and the view down to the component level is pretty important. And I think that sums it up right there. But there's going to be, are you ready? If you're sitting down, if you're looking at LinkedIn, if you're looking at Twitter or even Facebook, come back to the screen for a second because there's going to be a poll question coming to you. And if you answer the poll question, you could qualify for a gift on behalf or from Nutanix. So here's that poll question coming to you. And it's a real simple, straightforward question, very binary, very zero, very one. Which one do you choose? Would you like to meet with a Nutanix expert to learn more? So when they say Nutanix expert, obviously that's not me. So you're going to be meeting with somebody who actually knows their stuff. So there you go. There's your poll question for you. And if you participate, you could qualify to win. Like I said, a little gift from us just as a way to say thanks. And we appreciate you being here. But then on the flip side of the coin, I want you to be skeptical. Don't take my word for it. Don't believe everything that I've said. You should be able to test it for yourself. Roll your sleeves up, get your hands figuratively dirty at least, because there is a test drive. There's actually a bunch of test drives that you could try on any number of subjects. The one that resonates with me about today's topic is a test drive that actually lets you go through bursting Citrix desktops to AWS or Azure with Nutanix cloud clusters. And I'm going to give you a little sneak peek into that. You actually would be bursting 2,000 Citrix desktops up to one of those cloud providers, one of those hyperscalers in 90 minutes. That's 90 minutes, an hour and a half. That's shorter than a movie. So go ahead, take the test drive for free at your own leisure, at your convenience, and you can actually experience a lot of the things that we discussed here today. Again, that's Nutanix.com/test drive, and it is available to you at your leisure. And speaking of leisure, I know your time is valuable, and I really appreciate you spending the last few minutes with us here today on the EUC Expert Insights. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for attending this webinar, because it is viewers like you that make these episodes so special and so valuable. So thank you for your time, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.